What is African American values? Y'all don't have no values. Y'all don't have no cultures. Do I need to remind you that we set the standard of hospitality in this nation? What? Cooks, chefs, a butler book on hospitality?
What's good, y'all? It's the Demoucets REACT, and we're back with another video. Who we got today, C?
Today we're back with another American reaction.
Talk to
It's
him.
Black History Month,
You
so
know
it's
it.
our history, right? If you're new to us and we're new to you, make sure you scroll down, hit that subscribe button, and turn on the post notification bell because we're on the road to 100K. And we cannot get there without you guys, all right? Join the family. Without further ado, let's get into the video.
To think of African American cooking as simply a modern-day version of soul food is to think of a gumbo as simply a soup. Even while under slavery, black cooks created a distinctly American foodway, one that blends Southern cooking with European and Native American influences. Their talents earned them the respect of slave owners and employers, and that impact is felt still today.
Yep.
A book by Washington University professor Rafia Zafar examines the historic contributions of black chefs. Recipes for Respect is not a cookbook. Instead, it's an examination of the intersection of African American culture, history, and food.
It notes that she was awarded 2 medals for best pickles and sauces and best...
To Dr. Zafar, cookbooks are a form of literature. In them, she finds revelations about African American history, especially when the author is a former slave. For example, an orientation clause, the sentence that explains a recipe, reveals a lot about a cook's life beyond the kitchen.
I concluded to bring forward a book of my knowledge based on an experience of upwards of 35 years in the art of cooking.
That's what I love about cookbooks. You have to read between the lines.
Although Dr. Zafar's book is academic, she is a professor after all. It's peppered with characters who jump off the page.
Yeah, so far I like that their talent was giving them leeway, you know what I'm saying, to be amongst other men, you know, people out of the positions to where they was, you know, being suppressed, but they was in position to do great things and operating their talents. I feel like that was a blessing in disguise for them to slowly move up the ranks of what their living space was.
Definitely. I definitely would have been cooking.
Oh yeah, I feel
Please put me in the kitchen.
ain't no telling without, I ain't gonna talk, I don't like.
For a little bit.
CB on some other stuff.
I'm on my Harriet Tubman stuff.
What? See what I'm saying?
My people go.
Bro,
Yeah,
I like, but they was always operating in their purpose and
Definitely.
their talent. You know what I'm saying? So I felt like as long as you're doing that's gonna make way for you. It was working in back then as
I
well.
think that's what comes with the stigma of, you know, we don't trust everybody cooking.
Many of the chefs she writes about were former slaves,
Wow.
like Abby Fisher, whose book, What Mrs. Fisher Knows About Old Southern Cooking, was published in
that book.
1881.
I need that.
Abby Fisher was from the Deep South, ended up in San Francisco, where she's listed in directories as a pickle maker and a caterer. And she became well known for her expertise, the deliciousness of the things she made. And she had a group of well-off white San Francisco women who encouraged her to write a cookbook. There's no mention of her background. There's no mention of her race, only that she is someone who, she says in the introduction that she did not have the benefit of an education. And then there are only 3 recipes that either glancingly or about as explicitly as you can get refer to a life spent, if not literally in slavery, in a slave society.
Oh, that tells it all right there. Like,
Yeah.
if she wasn't able to put her ethnicity inside of a book, then telling us the time of the history that she was coming from, we gonna know the times and be like, oh yeah, they couldn't read or write back around that time.
Right.
Ain't no white woman back there talking about they couldn't read and write. They probably couldn't. They had some, but majority of the blacks was told not to read and write. You feel me? So
Yeah, they were punished if they did. But
they even had blacks teaching the whites to read at one point.
really?
Yeah, I believe so.
Like when they would come from sophisticated.
I would say
Plantations
whenever the and I could be wrong, could be backwards, but I think it was more so whenever the kids had their little
the kids.
friends with the black kids and when the white and the black girls, they'll teach each other basically.
One for blackberry syrup, one for hoe cakes, and one for what she calls infant pat.
Take 1 pint of flour, sifted and tied up in a clean cloth securely tight.
And it's actually an incredible thing for a black woman in the South to say. Particularly if it was in slavery, that meant she wasn't separated from her children. If she was a woman of any sort in the 19th century, that she gave birth and raised that many children is also phenomenal. Because the infant maternal mortality rates in the 19th century were very, very high. So she's kind of bragging. It's a humble brag, but it's a real brag.
And there is Melinda Russell, whose 1866 pamphlet of recipes is the earliest known cookbook by an African American.
When you read her cookbook, she has a slave narrative, the story of her family, prefacing her cookbook.
I was born in Washington County and raised in Greene County in the eastern part of Tennessee. My mother was a member of one of the first families set free by Mr. Noddy of Virginia.
Essentially saying we were slaves, and this is a good cookbook, because even by that point, the idea that there were black people who were in the kitchen and were sophisticated cooks, great cooks, was already starting to take hold of the American consciousness.
The former slave Rufus Estes was heralded for his fine cooking, enjoyed by royalty and heads of state on luxury Pullman cars. His cookbook was published in 1911 and includes an entire chapter on sauces. And with instructions that could be lifted from Downton Abbey, Butler Robert Roberts' 1827 book was a guide to proper hospitality in a well-to-do household.
When your cloth is perfectly even, then...
And this is why I always laugh when they say, what is African American culture? What is African American values? Y'all don't have no values. Y'all don't have no cultures. Do I need to remind you that we set the standard of hospitality in this nation? What? Cooks, chefs, a butler book on hospitality?
Come on, man.
I don't want to hear nothing else.
That's
nothing
a bar,
else.
man. That's powerful. That's really powerful, though. For real talk. For real. Our culture was in their kitchen. Was in their dining areas.
The White House.
The White House. So whenever they would eat our culture. They would feast off of what we will make in the kitchen.
Our standards.
We set the bar. And that's a bar.
That's a bar.
Round your plates, laying 4 at each side. Then put round your knives and forks, placing your knives at the right hand with the edge of the blade toward the...
He tells you how to polish silver, certain remedies like for hangover, but also just how to...
And I'm not saying that we didn't, but learn and adapt from other cultures, because of course, we had the French, we had the Spanish, we had all these things. But at the end of the day, this shows if you give us lemons, we're going to always make lemonade and make it better than what you thought you was teaching us.
Always. Gonna spice it up.
Always. And this ain't, I'm just saying facts here.
Run a household correctly. And of course, the irony of this is that African Americans were at the time thought of as dirty and savage and all that.
That's what I'm talking about.
But it was a black man who wrote this hospitality book that at least one Confederate general had in his library.
A hangover remedy would have been particularly helpful after one of Tom Bullock's concoctions. He worked at the St. Louis Country Club as a mixologist in the years before Prohibition. In the foreword to the book, The Ideal Bartender, Tom's skills with a shaker were lauded by presidential grandfather and great-grandfather George Herbert Walker.
Passionate. So passionate he had to write a book about it.
Where does this interest in food intersect with academia? Dr. Safar says food became a fascination in childhood during time spent in her grandmother's Harlem kitchen.
She made oxtail. I mean, things we now might think of as sort of soul food right? Fried chicken.
Ooh.
She always had greens. The thing I'm kind of interested in terms of literature is not only the way a sentence or a story is put together, but the cultural and the historical context. I saw how much what anthropologists call foodways, how much that has to do with the creation of Black literature and how Black authors specifically use their knowledge of foodways to sort of construct a Black literary or entrepreneurial civil rights identity.
As a cook herself, Dr. Safar experiments with traditional recipes now and then.
They're assuming on the part of the person reading the cookbook that you know how to cook and that you can figure it out. When they say a warm oven or a hot oven, they're not giving you 350 or 475. They figure you know. That's when I made my gingerbread, my cheap gingerbread from Melinda Russell, which is 1866. She didn't say anything at all about the pan. She didn't say anything about whether it should be a moderate oven, whether it should be a hot oven.
The day we were with Dr. Safar, she made hoe cakes from Abby Fisher's book. Hoe cakes are cornbread that slaves cooked on the fields using a garden hoe as a griddle.
It was
Stir
that
well
hot.
and bake on a hot griddle.
Today's
It
chefs
was
are
that hot.
She used a garden hoe.
Ooh. Give them lemons, they'll make lemonade.
She used a garden hoe.
Real talk.
Y'all, I freaked out when we had to go through rolling blackouts because I was in the middle of cooking a roast. She used a garden hoe. Babe, we're going to get a garden hoe in our
We don't have to do that.
hurricane
It don't need
readiness
to be.
kit.
It don't need to be all that. I think the heat though.
Going to get a garden hoe.
You got the heat out there too though. Ain't no heat when it's wintertime.
They put some fire, some coal, some something.
Shit.
A
Okay,
garden hoe.
I get the matches. I'm down.
Yes, we're going to experiment.
adapting African American cooking to 21st
A
century
hot link
tastes
salad
while
sausage.
remaining true to their heritage.
Ooh, she was from the
For
South.
example, Dr. Safar's favorite traditional recipe is for Hoppin' John. But on New Year's Day, she might serve a vegan version minus the pork.
And you're supposed to eat it for good luck on New Year's
Black eyed
Day,
peas?
along with greens. The greens is so you have money, and the Hoppin' John, for some reason, is supposed to be good luck.
Yeah,
Yo, that's
I like that.
art.
Yes.
That's art,
We're
bro.
going to get a garden hoe, y'all. We're going to get a garden hoe.
I guess we're getting
That's
the garden hoe.
innovative.
That is though. Yeah.
That's innovative. Just thinking back. Well, I'm not thinking back, but thinking about our people, like they were able to use the kitchens to cook, the family's food, but they had to cook their food outside with a garden hoe.
Man.
They cooked some cornbread with a garden hoe. I need to get my hands on these books.
Yeah, the books is classics, bro.
Yes.
Because again, they're speaking from a place, you know what I'm saying, and it brings you to that location, so you can have that full experience when you read it. That's a good thing about reading.
Yes. That my people always amaze me.
Mm-hmm.
The innovation. Oh Lord, I hope you guys enjoyed this video with us. Like this video, subscribe, turn on the post notification bell. We have enabled our super thanks if you like to support the channel that way, as well as our join features to become a VIP member of the channel. Send in your reaction requests through our description box below. We'll see you soon.
Peace.